Hi everyone, it's Arthur from Zebra Home Cinema, and I'm really excited to speak in person this time over a Zoom podcast with the one and only Luke Gibleon. Luke has been involved in the film industry for a number of years, although he looks incredibly young. I don't know how he does it, we'll come on to that. But his career is illustrious, and his work will feature on some of the best movies, particularly the action genre that you'll have seen, and especially on streaming. So, Luke, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself to the audience for us.
Well, you got my name there. Luke Gibleon. I've been working in film post audio for a little while now. I think the franchise I've worked the most in is in the John Wick franchise. I've worked on every single thing John Wick, which I love and I'm delighted to do. It's I grew up a big fan of martial arts action in particular. I learned martial arts, and so getting to work in a franchise like this and doing the world building that they're doing is that's kind of a dream come true for me. Beyond the Wick franchise, I've worked on a lot of other action films like Bullet Train and Fall Guy and one of the Fast and Furious spinoffs and Nobody and um, quite a few more. And beyond that, I've worked on things like the recent Lion King, the Mufasa Lion King movie. I've worked on the and I'm currently working on Avatar: The Last Airbender, the live action series that Netflix is doing. Other things like the Bob's Burgers movie, Twin Peaks, Underground Railroad, Lovecraft Country. So I'm kind of all over the place, which I like to be. Versatility keeps things fresh and challenging. So I try to I try to jump all over the place if I can, if the opportunity presents itself.
I mean, that's an amazing array and mix, and of course, and Straight Outta Compton, that's another show, movie you worked on. Um, I didn't know you had martial arts training. What martial arts did you practice in?
I actually learned wushu kung fu
Wow, proper
and
traditional.
and tai chi, and then a little bit of sanshu kickboxing.
Wow. Okay. And are you still practicing? Did you get to any particular like?
No, I when I moved out here, I stopped practicing because when I was in Boston doing it, I was basically doing it for free
Mhm.
as part of my um like part of the reason why I was doing it for free is because I was teaching, more entry level classes. And at that time I was kind of working on more competitive martial arts as far as I competing um, and doing some of the men's advanced forms for wushu kung fu. But then when I moved out here, I didn't want to like I was so broke, and there's no way I was going to go to any kind of school like that and have the audacity to, you know, push myself on them
Mhm,
to
mhm.
teach classes and learn for free. So it's been a while. It's been a while. I
Wow.
miss it. When my kid's a little older, maybe a couple more years. When he, 5, that's not too bad of an age. I'll probably try to get him involved in it, and then maybe get a chance to kind of get back in and
Fantastic.
hopefully not hurt myself too much.
Absolutely. So the real Cobra Kai story will evolve.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I just hope it'll be something fun for him. It's great for the body. It's great for discipline
Mhm,
and just learning how to use your body, learning
mhm,
when you're aware of yourself. It's very helpful and very useful, and that's that physical aspect of it. Plus it's can be very beautiful though. Like wushu kung fu is
mhm,
is a very beautiful and artistic form that it's just kind of fantastical to watch,
mhm.
and where a lot of inspiration from movie and TV shows we see is from more like wushu kung fu based
Mhm.
and artistic martial arts, and so it's just a wonderful discipline. And if my son doesn't like it, then we won't do it. But hopefully he will.
You're absolutely right. Some of the world's greatest martial arts actors all originated from wushu, and the great Jackie Chan, I believe Donnie Yen, amongst others. A lot of them trained in wushu.
Yeah.
Now,
Gordon Liu is like the founder of martial arts cinema. And he had all classics from like, you know, from way back in the day, but then even reprised roles playing like, I think like what was Pai Mei and
mhm,
Kill Bill.
mhm.
And so yeah, there's a lot of influence there.
And I'm sure we've probably watched and grown up with very similar films back from the 70s and 80s, like the Snake and the Monkey series, and all of these wild and wonderful martial arts films.
I think there's like the 11th Chamber, I think, if
Yeah.
I'm correct. And there's just like lots of wonderful, incredible movies that have
So,
been done since
um,
making started on almost.
yeah, yeah. Tribute to the Shaw Brothers studio who started it back in the day. Now, in terms of the John Wick franchise, I mean, what a cool franchise to be associated with, right? How did you get your work into that whole world?
I mean, that was all thanks to the person I kind of consider my greatest mentor, which is Mark Steckinger. Um, I was an apprentice on the first John Wick movie. I just finally broken into the union a little before then. I probably I came into came out to LA about the worst possible time, probably what a lot of people who graduated a couple years ago felt, where a couple years ago it's like you have the strikes essentially
Hmm.
happening,
Hmm.
and then like I came out right before the writer strike of '07 or '08. I came out in '07. So you're like dipping your toe in the water, and then the bottom falls out. And then it was years of just grind and being, near homeless every month, wondering if I'm going to be able to make it. So it was a grind. It was a struggle. It took a lot of a lot of perseverance and a lot of sweat equity to just keep my head above water. I had massive student loans. Um, and so I definitely empathize with a lot of people kind of going through that now. And I just kept my head down, and Mark was a contact of mine, as I had done something for him when I was in college.
Hmm.
I recorded sounds out in Boston for the movie Gone Baby Gone,
Hmm.
and I just kept putting in the work, and eventually there was an opening um, when Formosa Group was started, and he kind of helped get me in the door. There were no promises made or whatnot. It was just like, here's an opportunity.
Hmm.
And at that point, I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to do everything humanly possible to put myself in a position where I'm not in on the outside looking in again. So I just put
Wow.
my head down and got to work. And yeah, John Wick was one of the first, union movies that I worked on. And it was a blast learning from him, learning from um, um, Alan Rankin and Sibeli, just incredibly talented people, and in a world and style of film that I loved growing
Hmm.
up. So yeah, from there I was an apprentice. On the second film, I was an editor. On the third film, I was a designer. And then I moved up here into a supervisor position for both the Continental and then Ballerina.
Fantastic. I mean, what a journey, and it just goes to show. I've heard very similar stories from quite a few people working in the industry, and it's never an easy ride. And that thing of just perseverance and graft and not knowing what's happening next. I mean, having entered the industry, that must have been really. I can't imagine. For my thing, I went to university, went straight into a career. Everything seemed fairly solid. I can't imagine what that's like in your world, um, particularly even trying to have a family and all those sort of things. I mean, how did you? What psychological battles or what sort of resilience or how do you tutor yourself to get through those?
I don't know. I mean, you're just like you're like the mindset is like I have to do this.
Hmm.
I put so much into it. I had massive amounts of student debt. I didn't see any other option. But it wasn't easy,
Hmm.
and I certainly dealt with depression, along the way, and other hardships. Um, yeah, I remember being um, I was working as like a asset manager at another company, and that company shut down. That I had the opportunity to go to Colorado, which was where their home base was, but I was like, no, I'm still trying to slug it out and really get my foot in the door here. So I turned that down. So as a result, lost my healthcare because that
Hmm.
was gone. And weeks later, I got sick. Didn't want to go to the doctor. Then ended up with a peritonsil abscess, which was like growing into my up to my brain, and
Oh
spent
no.
8 hours in the ER, like holding my tongue as I had to drain this thing. And like, you get to these I lowest of lows. Um, and at that point I was pretty much ready to throw in the towel, but not too much longer after, about a year after that, is when I kind of finally got my foot in the door, and um, very grateful for it. And
Wow.
yeah, at that point it was like, okay, I'm I'm gonna I'm gonna give it everything I got, and not look back.
Wow. Wow. Whilst you're telling me that, all I was thinking about were all of these journeys that these same story with every martial arts hero film, the pain that they endure, the training that they go through, and then finally the boss battle at the end when it's all worth it. And this is you fighting those battles in real life. So, congratulations to you and everything that you've done, and it's made you achieve what you're enjoying today. So, I hope the rest of the journey is smooth and the ups and downs quite aren't so
Yeah,
steep.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely hope for less peaks and valleys.
Yeah,
I'm happy with kind of something more
yeah, a
steady.
bit of a plateau.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm um everybody goes through things.
Mm,
Everybody, we all deal through things, and it's a challenge for everybody. And so, the hardships I went through aren't greater than anyone else's hardships. But I do think they helped me in the long run to where I am today, because it definitely gave me the mental fortitude to really become a grinder, and put things into perspective, keep keep fairly level headed when the pressure's on, and and do whatever I could to become hopefully as indispensable as possible.
sure.
If that was the mission, like I don't ever want to be in that position again.
Wow,
So
wow. And the interesting thing coming on to the John Wick films, from a personal perspective, the first film is still quite unique, and I think it's a modern cult classic. I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me. And then the second one is more of a sort of continuation of the first, and then it gets just wild in three and four in terms of how creative can we be with the craziest action sequences, and obviously with technology, you've got bigger production value and the special effects and things. The TV show, The Continental, was very very charming actually, and I think it goes back to the much more of the old school roots and the filtering of the cameras and things. I mean, what's your? I don't know if you're allowed to share your own opinions on this, but in terms of the whole franchise, what were your favorite movies or moments to work on throughout, whether it's the movies or the TV show?
wow, favorite moments to work on. Oh man, that's a good question. I mean, one was just fun as far as just this whole new world. And again, I was newer to the union at that point, so I was just getting to learn from everybody. So that it was fun from that aspect. Um, two was a little like quick in and out. It was really fun at that. Two, what was unique about two is basically at the same time we were working on John Wick 2, we were also working on Jack Reacher 2.
Oh, okay.
And you could tell cinematically how different the two were, and how much the John Wick world that they created, the cinematography, the stunt choreography was just this like new fresh breath of air. Like Jack Reacher 2, it was a solid movie, but it still was like action of then, and of that kind of, you know, 2000s time period action, and it was how we'd been used to seeing action. But then with John Wick 2, you just could see the difference where you're like, this gorgeous choreography and design and world building that they were doing within in action cinema was it was just at a different level,
Mhm.
something we hadn't seen before. And so that's what I really took away from John Wick 2. John Wick 3, that was a lot of fun. Just some of the fight sequences I got to put together, um, and were the best. And you know, one of my favorite fight sequences I did is the big knife fight that
Mhm.
happens in kind of that museum. There's a big they uh, there's where they're breaking the you know, the glass cases and throwing knives at each other's, and then it evolves to axes, and then after that suddenly they're in a horse stable and you're using the horses, and just getting to put together all these outlandish and wild sequences was a whole lot of fun. And then in Wick 4, I was kind of comboing Wick 4 and Continental at the same time. So um, in Wick 4, I got to do just uh, the whole kind of the whole Japanese area, the fighting that happens in Japan, which was again a lot of fun. And then at the same time, I was working on Continental, which stylistically was totally different.
Mhm.
Albert Hughes brought his own thing to it. And that was fun because it was just like a different personal take that he had, and a unique way of working in the world, and um, and doing a lot of just different stylistic design work, because he emphasized, whereas most of the Wick films live within more of a natural reality where you're doing these outlandish things, but it's very diegetic, and inside the world, and that you kind of paint these hyper real sounds to go with, but live inside that world. Continental was kind of it didn't live so much in that space. It was a little bit more stylistic, and it was a throwback to old film classics
Mhm.
and 70s movies, and um, you know, the way he liked to work is pushing things to like the edge of a cut and hitting things out of a cut. So it was just a different style of using sound to tell the story, even though the action sequences we did were still very John Wick esque. And then into Ballerina, which is just like was a whole nother fun world to work in as well. And you know, again, we kept with the John Wick space, but in some of the other Wicks, there's a lot more guns than Ballerina
Mhm.
has.
Mhm.
Ballerina involves a lot more other weapons and props that she uses, so that got to be a lot of fun, just creating different sounds to use as she's using all
Mhm.
of these weapons and props, and having so much fun building it all together, and hopefully making it a fun experience for everybody.
I recall the in John Wick 3 that the shootout sequence when the full body, you know, the full body armor guards come in, and the just the power of those, the whole shotgun sequence, particularly in the home theater setting, it's insane. The
Yeah,
base levels are crazy.
Alan Rankin created such good. such good guns for that, and a shotgun sound that he kept developing over the course of the films and just made it bigger and more powerful as they went along. They're really cool, really fun.
And then you're thinking, how does one top that? And of course, in John Wick 4, you've got that very quite unique aerial drone type
That
sequence.
dragon strap, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and you feel like there's a dragon in that whole sequence doing mayhem.
Yeah, I mean the way that the conceptualization that like Chad and his team have done to just take things to the next level and go, okay, what are we going to do this time? It's incredible, and it gets you so pumped and hyped up to work on these things. You look at it and you go, oh, this is awesome. All right, well they brought it, so now we got to bring it.
And then that brings me back to Ballerina. So the interesting thing is, when Ballerina was released in movie theaters, you've got the Final Reckoning that's just come out. You're having the trailers come for Formula One and then Superman, and these huge big blockbuster productions and things. And then Ballerina sort of in the midst of all of that, a bit more subdued, and you're thinking, is it John Wick? Is he going to feature in it? Is it something similar to the Continental, where it's part of the sort of John Wick world, but not quite as big? And I've got to say, when I went to the movie theater, it was just, when you're not sure what to expect, and then it completely blows things out of the water, and it far exceeds your expectations. It was one of the just most wonderful surprises in movie theater I've seen for a long time, and it just took me back right to the roots of John Wick, something in between John Wick 1 and 2 in terms of the style, and just raw emotion, story, action. One of the best films I've seen, certainly this year, and certainly in a long time.
Well, fantastic. That's so wonderful to hear. I mean, for us, it was just, paying homage again to this world, making sure we're truthful to the world, and making it fun. That's what these movies are fun. They're a fun experience. That's what we want them to be. They don't take themselves too seriously, but they're full of creative and incredible sequences that are so cleverly put together by the top down, by and in this case it was both Len and Chad on some stuff, but Len did a lot of great and amazing stuff as well. Like the way he put things together. Some places you see like people in the reviews, if they're like they didn't like something, they're blaming it on Len, and not at all. No, Len was involved in a lot of the incredibly fun sequences.
Mm-hmm.
So he brought a lot to the table as well, and and the editorial team and everybody in general. It was just a pleasure to work on. Everybody was fantastic.
Hi everyone, I'm Artif, the cinema guy and your host for Zebra Spotlight. I really hope you're enjoying the content. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you love what I'm doing, please subscribe, share and follow. There's a lot more content to come. If you want me to interview anyone in particular, just let me know and I'll see what I can do. Congratulations to all the team. For me, it was one of those, if I could have a camera watching my face whilst watching it, you'll see those moments of just sheer delight of, oh my God, no way, and oh, and squirming at certain sequences
Yeah, yeah.
and just clapping at others, thinking this is just such good fun. It was, and you're thinking, okay, how are they going to top the crazy stuff that happened in the previous films? And you guys did it.
And they did. I mean, not everything tops it, but gosh, they sure did in a lot of ways. And
The,
just different creative ways in which they're using props and everything. Ice skate fight was so much fun. The grenade fight, and then of course the flamethrowers. It's just
the flamethrowers. I mean, everything's leading up to it, and you mentioned some of the sequences like ice skates. It's like this is just insanely brilliant. I don't think anyone expected this whole flamethrower sequence, and for anyone who's played things like the first-person shooter, things like Doom and things like that, there's always this like secret cool power weapon. If you can get hold of that, that's it. you can. That was
Absolutely.
insane.
And just like the kind of like, I mean, at least if you think most boys, like every preteen teenager boy's dream of a flamethrower, and what are you going to battle a flamethrower with? A fire hose, and it's just like, and the way they executed it, and that's all practical work. That's an actual flamethrower and an actual fire hose, you know, and they got to put that together in a safe way for these stunt performers to do, and shoot it in a way that is gorgeous. It's incredible the work that they did, and so for us, it just gets us pumped. We're like, okay, let's
Absolutely.
take
I
this
think that
on
that
and
sequence, action cinema history, that's got to be up there amongst the very best. How do you get an audience convinced? I mean, just on the technical aspect, just that flamethrower sequence. I don't know how technical you can go into, but talk me through how you convince the audiences that thing's going to burn you if you touch the screen.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's such an incredible balance and dance of, again, of all the elements. I mean, not just sounds, but music as well. There's a lot of work that both Casey and Andy did in that sequence to bring it to life. And Casey did an incredible amount of design work on the flamethrowers, because fire in general can sound washy really fast. So you got to bring a lot of texture and color and dynamics to something like that, to make it feel like it's going to burn you alive, and to make it feel like it's moving across the screen. So you're doing things with phase, and he was using his kids' voices, um and crackly elements as well, that you have to keep things moving. You have to keep dynamics, um you know inside that kind of picture that you're trying to tell as well. Meanwhile, music's, pumping your face off. So Andy's doing this incredible job of like pushing and pulling and filtering and EQing, wherever he can, so that they can both play together and have these moments. And it's just a dance. These action sequences in general, it's a dance, very much like the fight action itself. I've always considered stunt choreography and fight choreography, it's a dance. And going back to martial arts in general, there's an artistic element to it, and you can't just use the same punches and grabs and kicks on one sequences as you can on another. They're often in a way telling a story. So that's what we need to do as artists and telling the stories. We need to tell this story, and try to be as effective as possible. But it's a lot of fun.
It certainly looked like it. And as I said, my friend and I, we just had the biggest grins that you could imagine in the movie theater, just watching that whole thing, thinking, and just shaking our heads, thinking, this is just, how do you describe this? Just sensational.
It's so much. It's we love it. It's like that's what you want when you
Yeah,
go to, the movies, especially for a film like this. Is you want everybody like
yeah.
just stunned and awed at the action, and you do whatever you can, and hope we can accomplish that, and make it fun.
And when you're doing a mix like that, you've sort of mentioned, that you're bringing the music and the special effects, the voices, and when you're playing around with these things, moving on from mono sound and stereo sound, when you're working in sort of object-based sound in a sort of 3D environment, speaking to other people who go and watch movies, and they'll just go to any standard theater and they're happy with it. If I'm going to watch a film like this, I've got to find a theater where they've got at least Dolby Atmos.
Yeah.
How can you try and explain to the audience? If someone may say, well, I'm paying this much for the tickets, why should I pay extra to go and watch it in this room? Am I really going to notice the difference? As someone who's mixing an object-based sound, can you try and explain to the audience what they may feel, what's different in watching it in an immersive audio format.
Well, I think it goes back to what you just said. It makes it immersive, and makes it much more immersive than what you're going to get and a a smaller, less channel based format. And by doing so, it brings you closer to the screen. It brings you inside the world all that much more. When we're using objects, when we're using all the speakers that a theater can provide, what we can do is we can spatial, put certain sounds, and it could be sound effects, it could be the way the music is moved into the room. It's often what you're doing is because you have so many things happening at once. You're already trying to tell the story and carve out, okay, what are we going to focus on at this one time? But you still want to make, especially some of these huge moments, feel as big and immersive as possible. So by having those extra speakers, we can keep things big without blowing your face off and without competing with the other things going on. So if you have, dialogue is almost always got to live right there in the center channel on screen. Um, but if you have these other things like, happening at the same time, this action, a lot of that will have to sit with that center channel as well. But you can pull certain things off of the screen. You can pull that music off the screen. You can pull other effects, especially as the effects are moving off the screen. Even sometimes the things that are happening with what they're doing, you can pull them slightly off the center and slightly into the room a bit, where you're just giving everything space to have its own place in the environment and therefore be heard. You can hear what you want to hear, but also feel what you want to feel. You can keep it feeling, um, whatever the intention is you want people to feel. A lot of the work we do is not, it's not, see a punch, hear a punch. There's a lot of work we do that is meant to be felt and not necessarily heard in the way where you go, oh, I recognize that. The way we're using a punch or a kick sometimes, and then beyond with certain gunshots, certain these wild sequences, these flamethrowers, is we're putting these elements that are non-literal in with the actual sounds that are literal. And those non-literal sounds are often the things that are helping tell the story and making us feel like, oh my gosh, that was powerful,
Mm-hmm.
or that was otherworldly, or like, or it helps us put the audience into the, POV of the main character or of the villain. It helps us change perspectives. So there's a lot of work that we do inside that immersive environment that really brings the story even further to life and more, like you said, immersive.
I think it's a fantastic explanation. I appreciate that. I think that a lot of people confuse rumbles and bass and loudness with good sound design, whereas in my experience, it's always been the contrast and the dynamism between silence and I guess I don't know what to call it, but impact and the subtleties between the tiniest little footsteps to the grandiose, volcanic type seismic rumbles, and being able just to play around with those. So there's separation throughout the whole thing rather than just being loud and rumbly. But I think you explained that incredibly well.
Dynamics in space are huge factors in the work that we do, because it makes if you don't have dynamics, everything just feels flat. And part of dynamics is you have your levels, but it's also like you said, it's silence, or it's these moments that feel like they're silence. Sometimes it's like when you can suck the things out, you can play sounds very subtly. It's not silent, but then the way in which we can use those sounds, we can focus on a single sound at any given time. um and it's even why, even like in the John Wick world, the style in which we work is called, I like to call it precision violence, is because like th- there could be a frame where we're just focusing really on one single element, and then on the next frame we're focusing on another different element, and the other things are kind of getting pulled away from that, and it's all to create dynamics, and it's all to let everything breathe, and then where you use the space in general to help put things into a place where it's like they don't disappear all together. You still feel like you're in this world, but then we're the ones using a microscope or like a camera lens to go, okay, this is what I want the audience to focus on. We're making sure you feel like you're in this world, but we're also directing your eyes on the screen where to go, and whose point of view that we're in. So there's a lot of craft that everybody does: editing, design, mixing, and of course the filmmakers themselves who are um, directing us where to go. That we all collaboratively do together.
I I can always pretty much predict a fantastic home theater mix based on the cinematic, the commercial cinematic experience. Because if it sounds really good there, because it's challenging, it's a huge auditorium, lots of seats, lots of sound bouncing around all over the place. That's mainly designed to get people in and buy the popcorn and drinks and whatnot. If you can make it sound incredible there, it only gets better and better in the home theater environment where you've got an immersive system. So I can't wait to get hold of the 4K Ultra HD version of Ballerina. It's going to be
Yeah,
insane.
the Atmos down mixing to home theatrical, the algorithms they use are fantastic. I mean, to the point where like an Atmos down mix to 7.1 sounds better than just working in 7.1. And it's the way the algorithms work and how they collectively package all of that material together to still make it feel more spatially immersive than if you were to just do a standard 7.1. It's really impressive stuff.
Going back to the whole martial arts thing, I'd like you to tell me what are some of your favorite movies or martial arts heroes of all time.
Oh man, I mean, like Jet Li is one of my favorites.
Fist of Legend.
Mr. Legend is, oh my god, choreography in that movie is, it's unmatched even today in some respects with some of the stuff they've done. So yeah, him, Gordon Liu, who's a champion, and Bruce Lee, and Jackie Chan, um, and then even with Tony Jaa, with Ong Bak and the stuff that he's done there. Um, yeah, I'm a big geek and nerd and fan of martial arts action.
Mhm.
So yeah, when I work on, I often get called on to do the fight sequences, and anything I work on that has a fight sequence, and um, and it's fun because I want to make sure I'm giving it its due respect, and yeah,
And some of the most influential films that you've enjoyed that have sort of lasted the test of time.
yeah, I mean, Matrix would be, I mean, that in general was just one of the best um, sounding films altogether. But they did so much incredible martial arts work with the Matrix. I really liked like the Bourne series,
Hmm.
particularly fighting the action that they did in the third one, the Bourne Ultimatum. That was just stylistically like very, very creative. There's things that you pick up on where sometimes when you're doing a fight sequence, and I noticed this, when I'm piecing it together, there are places in a fight sequences where you can add an additional grab or an additional hit, based upon how you're kind of cutting it, where you can find, if you're really frame by frame going through and you're cutting out space for everything, and cutting tails and making sure that like it's not loose and sloppy, you can make those fight sequences sound tighter and make the action on screen look even more impressive. Um, and give sometimes these all the work that they're doing, even more clarity. Like there could be things that they're doing that are sometimes just slightly missed based upon how they're how the camera's moving, what things are being caught, and you can tighten those things up and slide stuff in. And like the Bourne Ultimatum, I thought did a really good job with adding in elements to make a fight sound even more chaotic and more lethal.
Hmm.
That like if you were to just hand that sequence over, most people would cut it and it would sound a lot wimpier than what the end result was.
Hmm.
So I always appreciate it when I hear great work done on when it comes to that kind of stuff.
And you've probably seen the Raid and the Raid 2.
Again, big fun action, just wild stuff. And to me, some of those are just like the
Yeah,
style in which that they shoot.
it's interesting, and particularly with the Indonesian martial arts, and if we talk about those films in particular, and the amazing action direction of Gareth Evans, it just for whatever reason it just seems a lot more brutal, and we're seeing a lot of those elements being drawn into sort of Hollywood production.
Yeah.
I think even like Extraction 2, as an example, it's just a lot faster and just a lot more brutal than what we used to see 20, 30 years ago.
Well, it helps when you have people like Chad and David Leitch, who co-directed John Wick 1 with Chad, and then went on to do Atomic Blonde and Bullet Train and Fall
Hmm.
Guy and more, and Deadpool 2, and is these guys are they're former stuntmen and they're huge fans of all martial arts cinema, and in particular martial arts cinema also that's being done internationally around the world. And so they and their company 8711 draw a lot of influence from all of it. And I think that's a big reason so much of that style of martial arts cinema has come into Hollywood all the more.
Hmm. Again, congratulations to all of you on an incredible job. Um, and so you have you're riding the wave, the huge wave at the moment, and just bask in the glory and enjoy it. What are your plans? What's happening? Can you share anything over the next few months or next couple of years? Anything you can share with the audience?
I mean, I'm going to be working on the next couple seasons of Airbender, and I'm looking forward to that. I know they just finished shooting season 2 a little bit ago, and they started shooting season 3. That's about as much as I can say. Um, and then I know also that Chad is going to be directing Highlander, which I'm
Oh, wow.
so
Okay.
excited for. He's a huge fan of it. I just know he's gonna bring something to that's gonna wow audiences. This isn't just some movie. He's just like, oh, it's been somebody else kind of did it and he just is jumping onto. This is something that's been a passion project of his for years.
Hmm.
So, and he's been doing tons of pre-production work on it. And then it's gonna be awesome. So I'm looking forward to whenever that drops, and yeah, and just whatever else comes hopefully my way.
That sounds incredible. And are there any hints of a sequel to Nobody? Has anyone mentioned anything?
Nobody Two has already been shot and mixed. They actually I didn't get a chance to work on it. They did that over in Vancouver, but Steckinger, he went up. He supervised that and was up in Vancouver doing it. And I think that
Hmm.
comes out soon. I think this fall.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, there we go. There's a free plug. Um, Luke, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. I know we did the Q&A, the written Q&A, a few years back, but this has been really insightful, and your just explanation of how you work, your field of work, and for other sound designers and members of the audience and all movie geeks and action movie lovers, it's been incredibly useful, and it's such a pleasure speaking with you. So thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure speaking with you too, and to talk with another real fanatic of martial arts cinema too.
Can't wait for the next one. But I wish you a great day, and enjoy your vacation coming up.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
All the best. Bye bye.
Bye.